Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Shards of Infinity from Stoneblade Entertainment. Shards of Infinity is a 2 to 4 player deck building game, although I'd really strongly recommend it more as a 2-player game than anything else. There are a variety of ways you can play it, free-for-all, team mode, head-to-head, all those different things, but I primarily do recommend it as purely a 2 versus 2 deck building system. In the game, and I'm set up a little mid-game over here, effectively you're going to have control of your character, and these character boards are purely aesthetic. They just have their health tracker as well as your mastery tracker over here, and you're trying to balance not dying while also leveling up your mastery to power up your cards as you build a better deck to take down your opponent. To that end, if you've played any general deck building games, a lot of what I show you here will be familiar, but I'll walk you through a few turns so you can get a sense of the game flow. Over here we're going to have a hand of cards. We're going to play one attack, one shard over here, crystal I should say, 2 crystals, 3, 4 crystals over here. Now this over here in particular, this is 2 crystals right here, but if I have at least 5 mastery, then it's 3 instead. So that's going to be 3 because I have over here 11 mastery. Not enough to get to 15, so it's not going to be 4. So I have 3, 4, 5 to spend over there, and then over here, same idea, I have 10 over here, so I've gained 3 and 4 attack. So I have 5 attack, 4 attack, and 5 crystals to spend over here. So I'm going to go ahead and spend my 5 crystals, and the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to look at the market over here. Nothing costs exactly 5, which generally makes the decision a little easier for me. I'm going to go ahead and spend 1, and you can only do this once per turn, to spend 1 crystal to go ahead and gain 1 mastery. You have to exhaust that, so that's a once a turn ability. I have 4 crystals remaining. I think I'm going to go ahead and grab a Corvus Legionnaire to add it to my deck over here, and then we're going to go ahead and grab an Order Initiate as well and throw that in my deck. Possibly should have taken the Fungal Hermit. It is what it is. So we're going to add those. I also have 4 attack over here. Now 4 attack is interesting though over here because 4 attack is just the wrong number to actually have in play, because 4 attack is not enough to do anything right now because my opponent has Zeta the Encryptor in play, which has 5 defense and the ability that you and your other champions in play cannot be attacked. In other words, normally the way it works with attack power is you can apply to champions that are in play. They stay in play round to round, and then anything left over, or alternatively anything I don't apply to champions, can go to my opponent. But in the case of Zeta the Encryptor, they actually block all the damage, and damage against champions has to be all at once. So I have to either get to 5 or nothing at all. To that end, my turn's done over there. We're going to go ahead and draw a hand of 5 cards over here. Now I am playing this slightly two-handed to see what's going on, which also means I may need to go ahead and draw some cards over here because there are defensive cards you can play, so I need to kind of make sure my opponent doesn't have any because I'm playing both hands. And from there, let's go ahead and play these cards. I have 1, 2, 3. I have 8 mastery, so 4, 5 over here, and then I only have 3 attacks, so 3 attack and 5. My 5 is going to go straight towards buying a Crypto Fist Monk over here because that's going to give me 8 defense and draw a card. That's very helpful. It replaces itself directly, which is very useful. So we're going to get that, and then my 3 attacks going to go directly to his head, dropping him down to 41. We're going to play that. We're going to take a few more turns back and forth so you get a general sense of the game flow, and then the champion is going to stay in play. We'll draw 2 cards over here. We'll take our discard pile and shuffle it up. Like I said already, if you've played deck builders, this is a very simple formula you've seen done time and time again. You're going to start the game with a hand of 10 cards, 7 best basic crystals, 1 basic attack, and then 2 cards that are effectively variations of crystals and attack, but with your mastery bonus taken into account. We're going to go ahead and draw 3 more cards, make sure we don't have anything over here. We definitely have some defensive cards over here. In fact, we just drew a Command Seer, so we're going to keep that in play, and our opponent doesn't know we have it because technically he shouldn't. And so over here, we're going to go ahead and play a crystal, a crystal, a crystal. That's going to be 3 crystals. Plus over here, the Numeri Drones is going to be a champion that goes into play. So this Numeri Drones over here is going to be exhaust, gain 1, and put the next Himidius champion you recruit directly into play. So if there were any Himidius champions in play here, they can come directly into play. We'll use it for the gaining 1 right now. So we have 4 total crystals. And then we have this over here, which is another champion. Oh my gosh, we're going to put that into play. And that's going to give us 5 damage over here. So that 5 damage, we're going to exhaust it, and we're going to deal 5 damage directly to this guy, which is going to go into the discard pile over there. But then from there, and you cannot, by the way, you cannot, unfortunately, use this to block against the attacks against your champions, only against attacks against yourself. From there, he's going to go ahead and have his 4 to spend, and there's not a ton to go over here. He could go ahead and get the Ghost Willow Avenger, and this is where we have a Mercenary in play. Mercenaries are going to be red border cards, and they have an interesting effect that you can buy this, putting it into your deck, or alternatively, you can activate it right now to do its ability, doing an additional 4 damage, but then it will go underneath the deck instead. So effectively, it becomes a one-time use card that you can benefit from right now, but we're not going to get that. We're going to go ahead and spend our 4 gathering this Fungal Hermit, but also upping our mastery by 1. We want to continue ramping that up so we can start doing incredibly powerful effects as we continue to, well, ramp it up. We're going to go ahead and draw our 5 cards, which means we're going to have to trigger a shuffle over here. We'll do like 1 more turn, and then we'll go into reviews and opinions and anything else I may have missed. But we're going to draw 3 more cards over here, put these in play. None of these are going to have shields in them, so we don't care about those for right now, which means over here we can take our turn. We're going to put this into play, which is going to give us 2 defense over there, 2 crystals, 3, 4, 5, 6 crystals in play, which means we can probably buy Omnius the All-Knowing, which is a very solid card. Let's just draw 2 cards, replacing itself, plus it has the Dominion effect where we gain 5 mastery if we've played a card from all of the 4 factions, played or revealed a card from all 4 factions that turn, which is not the easiest, but the fact that I can draw 2 cards, we're directly replacing itself and then some, is a pretty strong ability. That's the basic idea of this game. You're going to go back and forth trying to build a deck. There's a few cards we haven't, a few keywords we haven't really talked about, a big one being this Unify keyword. Do we have it anywhere? Here we go, Root of the Forest, Unify. That's going to give you 10 health back, which is very helpful, but then Unify, gain 10 attack if you've played another Undergrowth ally or reveal one from your hand this turn. Effectively, when you play this game, you're constantly trying to build into certain factions, because as you gather those Unifies, you'll have stronger and stronger abilities. Meanwhile, you're trying to up your mastery because of things like this Ghost Will Avenger. If you have 15 mastery, destroy all enemy champions. Just like that, you don't have to worry about having enough attack. You can just destroy enemy champions, and there's going to be lots of cards in this deck that really reward you for having high masteries. 10 mastery, draw a card. We have 20 mastery, draw 2 cards. These cards are going to reward you just doubling up what you have in the game as you up your mastery. We have the Fakudo the Formless over here, who exhausts to gain 2 strength, but then if you have 20 mastery, you double your full attack power for the turn. That's incredibly powerful and a great way to take down your opponent. And so this game, Shards of Infinity, is basically a game about trying to ramp up your mastery. It's about trying to, well, it's really about building your deck, but mastery is one of the many tools you have at disposal as you try to be mindful of what cards to add to your deck, when to use a mercenary's power because you don't want to clutter in your deck, or because you just need that power right now. If you have 4 damage against a champion and you really want that extra damage, sometimes using the mercenary is better, because even though it won't be added to your deck, it gives you what you need right now. So you're trying to build a cohesive deck, you're trying to be mindful of those mercenaries, you're trying to build cards that work towards the engine, you're trying to invest in your mastery, you're trying to buy cards to take advantage of your mastery if you're high, or cards that just do what they need to do if you're not focusing quite as much, all while you slowly charge towards taking down your opponent's health down from 50 health, which we're at the start at, down to 0 and win the game. And that's basically going to be Shards of Infinity. There are a few expansions to this game. I believe there's 3 expansions if I recall correctly. I think I've played with one of them, but it's been so long I'm not sure, so I'm not 100% confident. But that's basically what's going on in this game, which means now it's time to dive into ease of play, the review, all of those things, starting with ease of play. And ease of play on this one is, well, it depends. If you've played any deck building game before, any standard deck building game, this is going to be a very familiar system. It's going to be a starting hand of 10 cards. You're going to have a bunch of standard cards that let you buy more cards, a few other cards that mix things up. You're going to have a hand of 5 cards. You're going to be buying cards put in the discard pile, and whenever you need to draw more cards and you ran out, you'll draw more cards, you'll shuffle up your discard pile into your deck and continue drawing. You'll also have those cards that stay in play, these champions. Again, that's a very common tactic that's been used in a lot of these deck building games, to have certain cards that stay in play that your opponent has to deal with. Meanwhile, they're giving you ongoing abilities every single time they're in play. You're going to have factions combinations, that unify ability where you get to benefit from leaning into certain factions, because hey, if you have enough cards of that faction, you keep on getting up to different abilities. Meanwhile, all the factions are giving you different things, so overall, it's got a lot of those high notes, those key notes that are used in a lot of these systems. So if you know those types of games, this is an incredibly easy game to dive into. Incredibly, I can get you up and running in like 3 minutes if you've played deck building games like this before. If you haven't, if you're diving into this for the first time, then sure, there's a few things to learn. That main concept of building a deck and shuffling it through, if you're new to that, it's always going to be a little bit interesting the first time you learn about it, but still fairly easy to pick up. And games run around 25-30 minutes, especially if you're playing at the 2-player count, which I would strongly recommend. As far as what I like, don't like, and consider this not liking, starting off with what I like, which is, it's a deck building game that plays fairly quickly and gives you powers and abilities and gives you a card system, and it has, 80, roughly, I believe 80 cards in the core set over here that you're going to have the opportunity to build those and add those to your deck. If you like the genre that this is already starting off at a high point, because it just does that genre well. It has good graphic design, good art, it has a lot of fun abilities, and in particular the mastery track is a fun little mix that gives you a reason to feel more powerful even with the deck you already built. You can have cards in your deck that by the nature of bumping up your mastery, you get stronger even if you don't add more cards to your deck this turn, you might have 5 cards in your deck this turn that's simply leveled up just because you've upped your mastery. And it's a nice little concept that I haven't seen done as much in other deck building games. The idea of having, cards that build off each other, the idea of having factions in play, the idea of having champions in play, a lot of these things have been done before and they've been done well, and Shards of Infinity does them well, but doesn't necessarily stand out as innovative. The mastery is one thing that I don't think I've seen done in this particular genre before, and it does work well with what the game is doing. So if you like this genre, this is doing that genre well, and then adding a little bit of its own spark and flavor on top of that in a way that's good. Not necessarily, oh my gosh, you must own this good, but good, and so I like all of that. As far as what I don't like in the game, there's 2 things I don't like, and one's a smaller nitpick and the other one's a little bit more important. The smaller nitpick's going to be the fact that on these health trackers over here, I find these dials very irritating and they easily move back and forth. Just the way these boards are built, I don't know what it is, but I find these frequently, there's a very small notch here, and these things do move around fairly easily in a way that, again, it's not the end of the world, but I find that I'm constantly unsure if I had 43 health or 44 health, and if we had 7 mastery or 8 mastery. It's just the way the boards are built. I wish the dials were done differently or tracked differently. It's not a huge irritation, but it definitely has happened to me more than once in this game, where I'm just not confident that my current health or mastery is what it should be. The bigger complaint is more about the genre of this type of deck builder. There's generally 2 kinds of deck builders when you, in the larger scheme of deck builders, there's 2 classes. The first is where you have fixed card markets. You have pure agency over what's happening in the game because you have specific card markets that match the game, and you can build around the knowledge of what's going to be out there throughout the course of the game. It gives you a lot of control over your own destiny. The second is a rotating card market where you have cards just coming from a giant pool rotating into play, and this is more the latter, which is not as much my go-to in this genre. I like games in this genre, make no mistake, but I find that the fact that there's going to be like these 6 cards in the market and they're just rotating in means I don't find that I'm building towards the undergrowth faction. Rather, I'm building towards the undergrowth faction when the cards show up, and other than that, I'm just buying whatever cards happen to work their way into that pool, and I find it's a lot more victim to the nature of how the market evolves as opposed to my own agency as a player. So that's it's a ding almost against more of the genre of deck builder than Shards of Infinity in particular, but that's the biggest thing I would say I don't like about this, which is you build your thing and you work towards your thing, and then when the cards you want aren't there, you just go with the backup plan of buying other cards instead. As far as I can see others not liking, I don't know if I have anything in that category today. This is a very non-offensive game. It takes a game system that has been done in a lot of different ways, and make no mistake, this is from Stoneblade Entertainment, who have done Ascension, so they are one of the companies that have popularized the deck building formula. So even though I say that they've taken a lot of things that have been done before and done by other companies, they're also one of the other companies and one of the other people who have done it before. So they're tweaking and innovating rather than copying, but nonetheless, there's not a lot here to specifically dislike. If you like the genre, this game kind of works for you. If you don't like the genre, this game probably won't change your mind, and so I don't know if there's a particular aspect that I can pick out as something that would particularly bother you as you go through it. It's a non-offensive addition to the genre in most ways. As far as final thoughts on Shards of Infinity, I kind of touched upon it there in the last segment, which is this is a fun, non-offensive, well-done game. It doesn't amaze me. It doesn't do things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to have that game. It doesn't make me think that this game is a tremendous accomplishment of any kind. It just takes a good system, it tweaks it, it does well with it, and it does a good job in a way that works. And I always have a fun time playing it. But it's always interesting because it's one of those weird things. I think specifically Star Realms is going to be a game this is compared to a lot, and for good reason. And I think that Star Realms is interesting because if I'm comparing base Shards of Infinity to base Star Realms, I would probably pick base Shards of Infinity. I think that some of the things it does are nice additions to the Star Realms genre, and they work well for me. But then Star Realms also did a ton with it. Star Realms basically said, hey, you can have that small little box, but you can also have a larger ecosystem as well, and that kind of makes it both more ambitious and non-offensive at the same time, versus Shards of Infinity I don't think ever got to that point. And so for me, I like the game. I recommend the game. I think it does a good job, but I don't think it wows me. I don't think it amazes me. It is a good game doing a good system well. It's a 3.5 out of 5. I like it. I'm happy to play it, but it's not a must-have for me. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, I'm going to say Star Realms. Star Realms in general, I don't think Star Realms is better than this in a way that if you don't like Shards of Infinity, I don't think you'll like Star Realms either. But if you do like Shards of Infinity, I think you'll like Star Realms, and vice versa. But the world of Star Realms, I think, is far larger. So if you want to explore that in different ways, and I don't necessarily recommend that. I think sometimes these games do work well as a small box game, and sometimes making it a big box game can actually take away from it for you. But at least you have that option. At least you have that agency. You can dive into Star Realms as a small little box, or you can dive into it as a larger ecosystem, and that's up to you. And if you're looking for a different deck building game, Dominion has always been one of my personal favorites. That's very much going to lean much more into the peaceful nature of you earning your victory points, far more so than me taking your health down to 0, but it's still going to be an incredibly rewarding system that very much has that fixed card market that is much more my personal jam. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.